Great. Okay, so thank you for joining us for tonight's live presentation and Q&A session with Wendy Badger. So I'm just going to give you a brief introduction to myself and to the hubs that have made this virtual festival possible. So my name is Jessica Gillespie and I am one of 3 active travel officers for North Ayrshire Council. So part of my role is to manage behaviour change activities for the Trinity, which is the active travel hub based out in Irvine. So our hub is located in a beautifully converted church, so if you're ever in the area, please do drop by. Obviously when lockdown restrictions have been lifted, we're more than happy to show you around our fantastic office space. So this festival has given us the opportunity to work in partnership with the other 2 active travel hubs, one based out in Kilmarnock and the other in Ayr. So all 3 hubs have a common goal of promoting and encouraging walking and cycling for short journeys. So this could be for work, for leisure, for recreational, or for other purposes. So when our services are running as normal, the hubs offer a wide variety of activities. This could include cycling skills sessions, bike maintenance sessions, lead rides, or just general information and advice around walking and cycling. So each of the hubs, they represent a different locality in Ayrshire, so covering east, south and north. And if you would like more information about any of the hubs, you can check out the Ayrshire Women's Cycle Festival website for more details. So moving on to the main event, so we're really excited to have Wendy with us tonight. She joins us from all the way on the other side of the world, Brisbane, Australia. I believe it is 6 o'clock in the morning over there just now, so that in itself is inspirational. So Wendy will be talking to us about her experiences of solo adventuring by bike over the past 8 years or so. Her trips have taken her all over the world, from amazing places like Vietnam, across the UK, across Europe, New Zealand, and trips closer to her hometown of Brisbane. So we will learn how she has come to fall in love with adventuring solo, and hopefully Wendy will be able to share some hints and tips of a successful solo trip. So I will hand over to Wendy just now. So she's prepared a short presentation, and as I said, there'll be a chance to ask questions at the end as well.
Hello everyone. Good evening, and it's wonderful to be talking to you all the way from Brisbane here. So first of all, thanks to Jess and the North Ayrshire Council for organising this amazing cycling festival. It's a brilliant way for people to stay in touch during these challenging times when it's hard for us to get out and stay connected. And thank you for including me and giving me this opportunity. So I'm going to, as Jess said, talk about my experiences of learning how to travel and adventure solo by bicycle. So my love of cycle touring started in 2009 when my partner Jeremy and I decided to go to Vietnam for a trip, and as part of that we did a couple of very short, just 2 and 3 day organised cycle tours. Little did I know though that I was about to develop a full-blown addiction, and here we have the before and after of that addiction, which has lasted to this day. I'm at the top of this hill, and then by the bottom of the hill, there we go, I'm hooked on cycle touring, and that becomes really my obsession for most of my time for the next however many years. So having had such a fantastic time on the bike traveling in Vietnam, within 12 months, Jeremy and I had purchased our own touring bicycles and camping equipment and got ourselves on a plane and flown to Europe. What followed was 3 months of absolutely blissful, fully self-supported cycle touring across France and Italy, where we just had the type of holiday and adventure that dreams are absolutely made of. So we ate obscene amounts of cheese and pastries every day, and generally just fell in love with the experience of traveling by bicycle in France and Italy. When we came home, though, our intention to continue traveling by bicycle together was challenged by the practicalities of trying to cycle tour in Australia. But then, unfortunately, also my partner Jeremy became ill with ME/CFS, myalgic encephalomyelitis, or chronic fatigue syndrome. So this meant that really for the time being, and that we weren't going to be able to have any more of those blissful cycle touring adventures that we had had in Europe, and that I thought we would have many more of, having just discovered such an amazing way of traveling and adventuring and living. So I then spent the next several years figuring out different ways that I could continue to travel by bicycle. And this was a challenging process of trying lots and lots and lots of different things, because of course I loved traveling with Jeremy and we'd had such an amazing time. So there was a lot of sadness in having to find a way to continue that passion, but separate to him. So I went on lots of organised rides and tried lots of different ways of meeting lots of different people, and met a few friends who came on different adventures with me. And also my dad stepped in and took up cycling again for the first time as an adult, and he started doing some cycle touring with me. So within a couple of years, we headed off on our first cycle tour together. We went to New Zealand and we did the Otago Rail Trail. That was the beginning of our cycle touring adventures together. It's a 3-day, very easy cycle tour, but a great way to start cycle touring. Having started there, though, we weren't to be stopped, and Dad then joined me to cycle tour along the Danube in 2016. So we went to Lake Constance, and from Lake Constance, me and my 70-year-old dad cycled across along the Eurovelo 6, and we did a little detour down around the Austrian lakes and then through to Budapest, and celebrated, of course, with ice creams. Time marches on, though, and a significant birthday came around, and I realised that I had been investing a lot of energy into trying to find people to come and share these adventures with me, and that really what I needed to do as a long-term proposition was to learn how to do these adventures on my own. And this was something that really absolutely terrified me. It just was something that I didn't want to have to do. I didn't want to travel solo. And it's also very unusual in Australia as a woman to travel solo. So there weren't many examples of people out there that were doing something similar to me. So it was really quite intimidating. But I had reached the point where that was what I needed to do. So I planned a great big cycle tour around numerous parts of Europe, including your beautiful country of Scotland. And I wasn't to be solo for the whole of this trip, but I would be spending quite a lot of the time on my own, which was something that I had never done before. So to keep my anxiety at bay to some extent about heading off on this adventure on my own. I planned every single little detail of this trip down to the day. And then some friends of mine kept saying to me, there's this cycle touring festival on in the UK, and it's on the first weekend when you arrive in Europe. So why don't you go along to the cycle touring festival? And I kept saying, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to go to this festival because I was too intimidated about turning up to a great big event like that where I didn't know anybody. But finally, these cycle whisperers who were really responsible for getting me into this cycle touring caper in the first place prevailed, and I booked a ticket at the last minute to the cycle touring festival. So I arrived in Edinburgh, so it is now 2018, got my bike back together on my own and jumped on a train down to Lancashire. And then from there, I had really one of the most challenging 30 kilometres that I've ever ridden, which was cycling from the train station to the cycle touring festival in Clitheroe. It was still very intimidating for me, and I was still jet lagged. And it was my first day of my big trip solo and first day of riding on my own that I was heading out to the cycle touring festival. So that night I went to bed fairly early, and then in the morning got up, and it was a beautiful day. This is the first weekend in May in 2018, and the sun was shining. And in the breakfast queue, I very easily got into conversation with some really quite hilarious and great fun characters. And there they are in the middle of that photo, Jack from Ireland and Chris from Worcestershire and Robbie, who of course was another Australian from Brisbane too. And then what followed was just the most amazing weekend of meeting so many people and seeing so many inspirational presentations. This is Tim and Laura, the organisers of the festival, who do an incredible job. And then of course there was just the show-stopping presentation by Ishbel Holmes, your Scottish incredible adventure cycle tourer, who just gave the most amazing presentation. The weekend finished with us all swimming in the river in May, and these amazing new friends had been made over that weekend. And I had really, in turning up to that festival that had terrified me so much, I had found my tribe. And then it turned out that even though I had had to turn up on my own to this festival, I wasn't going to be leaving on my own. None other than the amazing Ishbel Holmes was also cycling back to the station the next day, and so we cycled away together. Ishbel was to be catching an earlier train, and we got chatting so much that she actually was running late and she had to pelt off, and she's an incredible cyclist, and so she headed off to catch the train. When I got to the station, I was quite concerned that she might have missed her train, and then as it turns out, I saw her and she had missed her train, but she had talked the guards into putting her on the same train as me. I was catching the train through to Glasgow. She was supposed to be going to Edinburgh, but she jumped on the train with me, bought some Foster's beer for us to share. I don't even drink, and Australians don't even drink Foster's, but I was very, very happy to share a beer with Ishbel on that train. We had an amazing journey north, and then it turned out that not only were we on the same train that day, but Ishbel was catching the same train as me through to Fort William the next day, which is where I was heading off on my cycle touring. So having turned up at that cycle touring festival and met all of those amazing people and done that on my own, and met so many women who were cycle touring solo, including Jen, who I made friends with. She was heading off on her own solo cycle tour. shortly after me. And it gave me more confidence than I had been able to gather in the previous however many years of trying all different things to get the confidence to go solo. So the festival really did give me so many skills, and I met so many great people. So then, having been able to get that confidence, I was off and I went and pitched my tent for the first night. I was still, of course, terrified that I was going to get murdered, but I didn't. And in the morning, the family from the next campground came over and made me a cup of tea. And really that set the tone for my cycle touring around Scotland in particular. I just met so many amazing people, and I hadn't met as many people when I was traveling with other people as I did when I was traveling solo, which was a really lovely thing about that experience. So I was away. I cycled from Fort William across to the coast and down to around the Isle of Mull, and then headed back up the coast and just had an amazing time. And then my dad came and joined me again, and we enjoyed that beautiful Scottish summer of 2018, where it was incredibly sunny and warm. We didn't do too badly out of the midges. And I even managed to cap it all off with a swim in Loch Lomond. Then Dad and I had some unfinished business in Europe, having cycled across Western Europe, across Eastern Europe to Budapest on Eurovelo 6. We realised we needed to cycle across France to the Atlantic following Eurovelo 6. So we cycled through the Loire and visited all of the castles and ate lots of amazing pastries again, and we finished up at Mont Saint-Michel. So together, my dad, who hadn't really cycled as an adult, he and I have now cycled across the whole of Western Europe together, between the Atlantic and into Eastern Europe, in as far as Budapest. So then I headed off on my own again. I had in mind that I wanted to cycle some really big climbs of the Alps, and I was going to cycle through the Alps and across Switzerland back to Zurich. So I started off again on my own and did some amazing cycling around Grenoble. But it was really, really hot that summer of 2018, and it was really getting too hot to enjoy the cycling. So I jumped on a train and headed back to my friend's place in Zurich. And from there, I headed off really free range. And I grabbed the cycling map of Switzerland and headed off across Switzerland without a plan. So this was where, having gained the confidence to cycle to a solo, I was able to throw out all of that planning that I had done to give me the confidence to go on my own and to just follow my nose. And this is really what one of the joys of cycle touring is having that amazing freedom to travel as you feel at the time, and to just follow your nose, really. So I cycled around Switzerland, which was just absolutely extraordinary. I found myself in what is mountain biking paradise, and I hired a mountain bike for a few days and had an absolute blast mountain biking in Switzerland. Then I went over to Ireland to visit a friend and also to finish off my cycle touring. I did some more solo cycle touring around Ireland, and then these guys came and joined me. So the amazing friends that I had met on that first weekend in Clitheroe at the Cycle Touring Festival, Jack and Jen and Chris and also Robbie, they all came over to Dublin and joined me to finish my cycle touring adventure. So we cycled south from Bray and just had a crazy couple of days together, sharing our passion for cycle touring. And it was with them that I finished the cycling section of my big adventure. So even though I had headed off solo on this massive challenge, I hadn't had to spend the whole time on my own. And I think that is really what I learned about having the courage to get out there and give it a go. That the times when you are cycling on your own, it's just blissful and free, and you have all of the autonomy to follow your own nose, but also that you meet so many amazing people. So then, to finish off my adventure, Jen, who I'd met at the Cycle Touring Festival, she had told me that there was a Women's Adventure Expo in her hometown of Bristol, and that was on the very last weekend of my time in Europe. So I went over to Bristol and went along to the Women's Adventure Expo with Jen, which was just amazing. The thing about that festival was that I didn't have all of that anxiety that I had had turning up to the Cycle Touring Festival. I had a lot more confidence and was able to feel confident and meet even more amazing new friends, Shelley and Nadia, here at that expo. And then on my very last night in Europe of my time there, Jen took me to see real live badgers, which was just amazing. So then, having met so many amazing people on my trip and really learnt that adventuring solo as a woman is not that strange, and that you can do it, and that you don't want to wait for all the stars to align, that you really just have to get out there and do it. I held a little workshop for women locally just on my back deck to share the stories of my trip, and it helped hopefully inspire other women to get out and cycle tour or adventure solo. And after having spent so much time feeling quite anxious about having to travel or even just cycle locally on my own, I'm now very confident heading out on my bike anytime on my own. Also, my partner Jeremy, his health is improving, and we're now able to get out together on some little adventures. He's on the electric bike, and we hope to be able to get out and travel again sometime soon, some kind of cycle touring or adventuring together. So I really want to thank everyone that organised the Cycle Touring Festival and the Women's Adventure Expo. Those kinds of community events really do help to foster those connections that are just essential. And in this time of COVID-19, I think we all feel the need for those connections even more. So I can't thank them enough. Thanks to, of course, the amazing Ishbel Holmes. If you haven't read her book, seek it out. It's just extraordinary. Thanks to my amazing cycling Avengers who I met at the festival and who came and joined me in Dublin. And of course, thanks to my dad and to Jeremy for supporting me in heading off and traveling solo. And also just wanted to mention that the proceeds from this talk have been donated to the MECFS Research UK. So thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Wendy. That was Absolutely fantastic. What a great presentation there. I think you really summed it up for me when you said it was a picture and you had said that you went there alone and then you had found your tribe.
Yeah.
That really summed it up for me for this presentation. What a remarkable journey. I'm sure you have inspired a few of the audience members to start thinking about what their next cycle journey could look like. So plenty of questions coming through. So let's have a wee look. So this one is from Katrina. What are your thoughts on safety travelling alone as a girl? Do you worry about it all or just crack on?
Pretty much just crack on. Once you're out there and have momentum and are going, it becomes less of a concern. Obviously, there's simple things you can do to give yourself more confidence in terms of safety, just around how you actually do it. And I guess it's about building up that confidence in your own safety. So if you're not feeling confident, say, to cycle, tour and camp, that's absolutely fine. You might not feel okay about staying in a tent on your own as a female, but you can just ease into it by staying in other types of accommodation until you get the confidence to be out there on your own. At the end of the day, also, the reality is that the safety risks of being out there on your own are pretty minimal, especially compared to all of the risks we face in our normal daily lives. So it's more, I think, of a mind game than a practical exercise in safety. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you for that. Second question, how much weight do you limit yourself for your trips?
So I'm not, when I'm cycle touring in this way, I'm not an ultralight cycle tourer. I do try and have the most light things that I can, but I also take a little chair and a few comfort items because I want to be comfortable around camp. I know just because of the weights for getting everything on the plane that my whole kit with the bike ends up being about 40 kilos.
Right.
So yeah, so it's pretty heavy, but you know, it's just normal once you get going. So yeah, you just you're not I'm not in a hurry.
Do you find yourself building up that weight with more trips that you take, or do you limit yourself to an exact weight?
I don't limit myself to an exact weight. I just take the gear that is suitable for the trip. Yeah. If I'm going for a long time like that, then I will usually take a few extra comfort things because I know that I'm going to be spending a lot of time around camp and I want to be comfortable. Whereas if I'm doing something locally that's like a bike packing style trip, then I won't take, and it's a shorter trip, then I won't take as much stuff and I'll go a bit lighter. But yeah, weight isn't really an obsession for me.
Okay, good. Next question. What is the best trip you've done?
Oh, that's really hard. Look, I don't think I can say what the best trip is. They're all been amazing, and all the places I've been have been amazing. Look, I did have an extraordinary time in Scotland. It was just absolutely magical. The weather just turned it on, and the landscapes are amazing, and the people are extraordinary. And I hope that one day we can travel around the world again, and I can come back and visit Scotland. I haven't been to your town of Irvine, and I'd love to come and check out your travel hubs there.
Yeah. More than welcome to come along.
Yeah, that'd be great. Look, they've all been amazing trips, so I don't actually have a favourite.
Okay, moving on to the next question. Do you generally camp or plan trips with places to stay?
So I generally prefer to camp. I love camping. It really does seem to go with the freedom, I guess, the freedom of cycle touring, that you can stop more easily where you would like to than if you have booked some accommodation. And I love being in the tent. It feels like home, especially when you're on a big trip. So you get that sense of, I guess, that sense of comfort and home because your tent is your home for that time. But there are other trips. For example, I've done quite a few trips to New Zealand. Very lucky to be able to visit there so easily from here. And it's similar to Scotland, is not known for its lovely weather. So it generally is easier on those trips to book accommodation, knowing that you're going to have a chance of getting things dry at the end of the day. So yeah, it depends, I guess, on the type of trip as well. And what I would say is that it doesn't matter how you do it. That's the thing about traveling by bicycle, is that you can do it anyway, just whatever works for you. And, you know, you might spend some of your time in the tent and some time in accommodation. On our trip along the Danube, we ended up staying in accommodation a bit because the weather wasn't great and we just needed to get things dry. So we would stay at a hotel and hang everything from every surface, with all of the heating turned up, just so that we could be a little bit dry. So yeah, it's whatever works for you.
Okay, perfect. So that'll answer Kristen's question, do you always camp? So thanks for covering that. Luna's question, how did you tell your husband that you were going solo? My wife's idea of venture is different from mine, and I am not sure how to handle the conversation of potentially going solo. That's a tricky one.
Yeah, like it's kind of a bit of a band-aid, isn't it? That you just have to rip it off. I think in the end, you know, I just did say, look, I think I need to do this trip on my own. It had been such a long time that I had been trying lots of different things, and I had all of them were amazing adventures. So that I wouldn't change that for anything, but it had sort of reached a natural point where the next step was to go solo. I think that Jeremy was probably more concerned about the anxiety that I would then go through around doing the trip on my own than the reality of me being out there on my own and the safety and any of that stuff. And fair enough, because it was very challenging for me to work through that whole process of getting that courage up to go solo. But I guess the thing is that we've all learnt during this COVID-19 is that you just can't wait until all the stars align. Things can change in an instant, and that's certainly what I learnt through Jeremy being unwell, is that if you keep waiting for something, it may never happen. So you just have to get out there and do it. Don't miss out. If you have the opportunity and it's something that's really important to you, then take those opportunities when they're there and when they come back. And when you can get out there again, then get out there, because we don't know when we might not be able to get out there again.
Exactly, yeah. And I think COVID, being in lockdown, has made people take things for granted. So yeah, a lot of people will be jotting down their next adventure. Moving to finances, does it cost a lot to do a big trip like the first solo one you went on?
No, it doesn't. This is the thing. So part of the reason, but not the whole reason, but part of the reason for going self-supported on a cycle touring trip is that it is really cheap. It's just an incredibly cheap way to travel. If you're camping and self-catering, then it's extraordinarily cheap. So I don't choose to do fully self-supported primarily for the finances, but it does mean that you can go for a lot longer, You know, it's probably easily 5 times as expensive if you are staying in accommodation every night and eating out in restaurants and cafes. So especially when so many of the amazing so much of the amazing cycling infrastructure is in Europe. We don't have that kind of infrastructure in Australia. That's why I love cycle touring in Europe. It'll probably be a while till I can do that again. But with the amazing infrastructure over there, I do love coming and cycle touring in Europe. But it is a really, really, really long way. So I do want to come for a decent period of time. And the cycle touring it's not as much a holiday as a lifestyle. And so again, also being able to do it for a long time, you really get to live that lifestyle. So long-winded way of saying, no, self-supported cycle touring is not an expensive way to travel.
And I think we've got time for one more question. So Luna is asking, where do you keep your bike when you camp? So
I just lock it up. So I do take a lock. One of the heavy things that I take is a really good lock. I think my lock weighs the same as my tent, actually. Yeah. And that's kind of the whole trade-off in the weight of things that you carry. And there'll always be a tree or a post or something that you can lock it to, but I always lock it up, and if I'm going into a shop or something, I always lock it up. So I don't, unless I'm staying in accommodation that has some storage, it'll just be locked up to a post or something.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully with a few other bikes from a few other cycle tourers that might be travelling through.
Yeah. Excellent. So unfortunately, that is all the time we have for questions. Again, any questions that we haven't had time to answer tonight, we will get these answered in a follow-up email. Wendy, thank you again for joining us tonight. We'll leave you now so you can get back to sleep. Maybe another cup of tea.
Another cup of tea. Thanks so much, everyone. It's wonderful to talk to you. Great to be part of such an amazing event. Thanks, Jess.
No problem. You take care.
Thank you. See ya.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. Just to make you aware that as soon as you close this browser, a short survey will pop up on your screens. The survey will take just 2 minutes to complete, and it will help us put on free festivals like this in the future. So feedback is much appreciated. So just a plug for the whole festival. We hope you've had a look, had a chance to look at our website. If you haven't, please do check this out. Lots of features to cater for all levels of cyclists. It includes our fantastic how-to bike maintenance videos, which have been created specifically for this festival. Lots of inspirational bike stories from local women, details of our other live speakers. Those that were on last night actually are already available as a recording on the website, so do check this out. We also want you to get involved. If you have your own bike story, or if you want to send us a picture of your blind up bike or bike art, then please contact us, and don't forget to use the hashtag AWCycleFestival20. So tomorrow is the last day of the festival, sadly. Our last webinar is on at 6:45, where we are joined by Lindsay Johnson. So Lindsay will talk about her experiences in the sport of biker, which I actually had to look up initially, had no idea what that involved. So if you look up biker, one of the definitions is that it involves attaching your dog or dogs to your mountain bike. Then the dogs will pull you forwards, and the cyclist pedals and steers through the countryside. So if you're intrigued like I am, you still have plenty of time to register for this webinar. And to end the festival, tomorrow at 8 p.m, we have the screening of the film Divided, which is definitely well worth a watch. So don't forget to register for free on our website. So thanks again everyone for tuning in, and we hope to see you soon.